Hello, hello, and welcome to BSB Must Reads, where we share with you all the books you must be reading this month. And today I have with me author David Swatling. Hi, David, how are you?
I'm just fine, Sandy. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I love your shirt. That's very festive.
Oh, thank you. I thought it might possibly match the book cover.
It's close. I like it. It's got some fall vibes going on here.
Yeah. Well, that's the setting for the book, so that's my shirt.
Okay. That's good. It's good. It's always good to dress to match your book. I like it. To try it sometime. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, in case readers haven't met you yet? And then I'm excited to hear about Corpus Calvin and how it fits into your series. And then I think you have a reading for us.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'm David Swatling. I'm a retired radio producer, past theater person, but now I write. And my debut novel, Calvin's Head, was set in Amsterdam because that's where I live. I still live there. But I decided, even though I had written it as a standalone, people were asking me, what happens next at a very early time. So I thought, oh, what happens next? Well, what kind of had happened next was while I was editing the final draft of Calvin's Head, I was staying at an inn in northern New Hampshire that a friend of mine owns. And I thought, oh, well, why don't we just move Decker and Calvin to New Hampshire, the White Mountains, from the flatlands to the highlands, and see what happens? And that's how Corpus Calvin got to be the second book in the series, the Calvin series. So I'm going to do a reading that's kind of from the beginning of the book. It's not kind of, it is from the beginning of the book. And it's when Decker and Calvin reach the inn, the destination for their new adventure. And I have to take off my glasses because I can't see with them. I'm so glad you're here, Decker. You have no idea. Bernstein's urgent greeting, whispered into my ear and matched by the tight clasp of her arms around my body, surprised me. Had we been closer friends in college than I remembered? Or was it just a case of distance makes the heart grow fonder? 10 years and a few thousand miles was certainly enough in the distance department. But I sensed something deeper, some unnameable but profound relief she felt at my arrival, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. More than a little disconcerting, I wasn't sure I was up to any heavy lifting, emotionally speaking. To be honest, my immediate thought echoed one I had less than an hour ago. Get back in the Jeep and keep driving. Calvin interrupted the moment with a sharp bark. Hey, cool your jets, Calvin, I said. He gets a little jealous when he's not the center of attention. Before I could figure out how to extricate myself from her clinging embrace, the crisp autumn air was pierced by a blood-curdling scream from inside the inn. Calvin burst into a paroxysm of frantic barking. Bernstein broke free from me, a panic-stricken expression clouding her eyes. She rushed across the wraparound porch and through the double-door entryway without another word. Calvin, stop! Shut up! Ignoring my command, he lunged toward the entrance. I grabbed his collar just in time to hold him back. I had no idea what was going on inside, but Calvin had clearly switched into guard dog mode. Best I directed his attention elsewhere. Calvin, sit, stay with Jax, watch Jax, stay. My guess that he'd bonded enough with the new Jeep, Jax too, to do what I said proved accurate. He sat by the passenger door, softly growling, scoping out the parking lot for any potential danger. I glanced around and saw a young boy sitting motionless on a flat rock on the grass lawn between the end of the parking lot and the big red barn. As I headed into the inn, I hoped he would stay put for the time being. Directly inside the entrance was a short flight of stairs to the second floor. To the left was a softly lit room with a reception desk, ornate fireplace, tastefully upholstered couch and armchairs. Raised voices came from that direction, farther inside. I hurried through a wide archway, which led to a lounge boasting an antique chandelier. Off to the left, another hallway, where Bernstein knelt next to a moaning, crumpled figure at the bottom of an impressive staircase. A pale, shivering teenage girl stood above them, hands gripped her face, eyes wide and tearful, mouth attempting to form intelligible words between choked sobs. Can't go up there again. But what happened, Amber? Bernstein asked. Did your sister fall? No, the girl on the floor screamed. Push, bastard, pushed me. Who pushed you? When the girl didn't answer, Bernstein looked up at Amber. Did you push your sister? No, no. She managed before dissolving into a puddle of sniveling whimpers. Pull yourself together, Amber. Get a plastic bag from the kitchen and fill it with ice. Make it 2. Now, Amber. The girl shook her head as if waking from a bad dream. She scooted past Bernstein and her injured sister, heading through the chandelier room. Can I help? I asked. You'll need to carry her to my car so I can drive to the ER. I'm afraid her ankle's broken, or maybe a bad sprain. She gestured to a door next to the stairs. Here in room 1, in the bathroom. Get a couple of clean towels so we can wrap the bags of ice. Amber, move your ass! I started toward the room she indicated, but stopped short when a loud bang sounded in the hallway. It seemed to come from upstairs. At least that's the direction in which Bernstein looked, her face a mask of anger. Another massive bang, as if someone up in the tower were using a baseball bat on the wooden banister. Bernstein slowly rose to her feet, still staring above the ceiling, or so it looked. A third colossal bang shook the whole building. I heard the chandelier tinkling in the next room. You asshole! I've had it! Enough! I'm not going anywhere! I told you already! So just screw off! Do you hear me? Screw you! There was a moment of silence, and then a series of loud and fast banging, accompanied by what sounded like every one of the inn smoke detectors going off at once. And it all stopped as quickly as it done. The hallway was quiet again, except for the ringing in my ears. Bernstein turned to me, her face red, but the look of anger had changed to one of sad resignation. Should I go up there? And no, she said quietly. I'll explain later. Just get the towels, please. A little later, as I carried the girl across the porch, Cal still stood guard by Jack's. The boy had moved from the rock and sat on the ground face to face with Calvin. Bernstein helped me deposit the girl as carefully as possible into the back seat of her SUV, where Amber was already sitting, staring blankly out the window. I think they were both in shock. Bernstein covered the pair with a blanket and slid the side door closed. This is not how I planned to introduce you to Ethan, she said with a sigh. Ethan? My son, your dog's new best friend. She gave me a penetrating look, determining whether or not it was safe to leave her child with a man she hadn't seen for 10 years. I felt like I was being mentally strip searched. I must have passed her assessment because she nodded, walked over to the boy, and squatted beside him. Ethan, remember I told you a friend was coming to visit? Well, this is Decker, my friend from college. Remember? I want you to stay with him while I take Jade and Amber to the hospital, okay? We don't like the hospital. You don't have to go to the hospital. You can stay here with Decker. Ethan, did you hear me? We hear you. The boy didn't move. Okay, show Decker around. Give him the grand tour. Show him your rock garden, okay, Ethan? Words, please. Ethan, we'll show him. Words, but no movement. Okay, Ethan, I'll be back as soon as I can. She stood up and gave me a quick hug. He doesn't say much, but he likes showing guests around. We call it the grand tour. I won't be long. The girl's mother's meeting me at the ER and I'll come straight back, an hour tops. And thank you, Decker, just thank you. She got in the SUV and they were gone. The boy still sat staring at Calvin, who calmly stared back. Hi, Ethan. Nothing. Nice to meet you. Nothing. This is my dog, Calvin. I didn't expect the boy to answer, so I almost missed it when he did. We know. Neither the boy nor the dog moved a muscle, as if frozen in another space and time.
Oh my goodness, I love it. Jason is about as good with kids as I am, so I can relate there. That's great. Okay, so I'm interested to know where you came up with the idea for Jason Decker, this kind of guy. He starts off homeless, and he stumbles into a murder, into a mystery, gets kind of, convoluted, and caught up in that. And then in this new book, he's kind of dragged into another mystery. So tell us about Jason and how you came up with him.
Well, I I guess you could call it autobiographical inspiration as opposed to fiction. I was homeless living in Amsterdam in my Jeep with Calvin, my dog. And we did come across a crime scene, which led me to start thinking about the ideas for the first novel. And of course, it went off on its own direction. I never did fall in love with a serial killer, but
Maybe
yeah,
next time.
I know. but I and I never did leave Amsterdam. But at the end of Calvin's Head, it looks like Jason Decker and his dog Calvin are on their way west somewhere. And so when people started asking me what was next, and I started thinking, oh, should there be another book? I was staying summers in New Hampshire at an inn owned by my friend from college. And I just thought, oh, well, let's just move them here. It's a completely different location, and I think we'll find something interesting for them to do. I mean, my first thought was, I mean, there had been a break-in at the inn while I was staying there, and some teenage boys had been breaking into places in the area, and I thought, oh, what if teenage boys start appearing dead after doing these little things? But then I thought, Decker deals with a serial killer in Amsterdam and goes across the ocean to a whole new place. And first thing that happens, he runs into another serial killer. I don't think so. I don't know. I have credibility issues with series that work like that.
That would be very bad luck for sure.
Yeah. So I thought I wanted to do something completely different. And well, my friend had been telling me various stories about the inn and how it might be haunted, and her own experiences of hearing strange noises or whistling in the kitchen or other things that couldn't be explained. And I thought, oh, well, there's a different kind of mystery. And there was also a curator from Boston, I think, had come up there once with a painting that he was trying to find the provenance of, and he had a feeling it might have been painted at the inn. And this was from the 19th century. And I thought, oh, Decker's an art historian. That's something he would be interested in. And the last little piece of the puzzle actually didn't come from me at all, except that I went on a cemetery tour because I love cemeteries. So the Littleton Historical Society organized a tour. And one of the things they pointed out during the tour was the grave of the first African American to be buried in Littleton Cemetery. And he had been a fire chief, very popular fire chief. And when he died, there was a big funeral and choir sang. And I thought, oh, how did he get there? And I sort of looked at the dates a little bit and thought, oh, he might have been a child during the Civil War. Oh, that could be interesting. And suddenly things started happening. I found a newspaper article that week about a missing journal that had been found that an important resident of New Hampshire, and it turned out that that particular episode of his life he wanted hidden because he could be arrested and jailed for something that happened during that. And all of these things started falling together. And suddenly I had not one, but two or three different mysteries for Decker to stick his nose into. And not that he's the most effective amateur sleuth around. He tends to get distracted by things and he doesn't always make the right choices. And there are some other characters who become a lot involved in these mysteries as well.
Wow. I mean, is life imitating art or art imitating life there? That's so interesting how your life and these elements of fiction are woven together in both of these stories.
Yeah, no, well, I like to observe the world. I like to find out about things. I like to delve into history. And it's funny, when I start writing, suddenly these things start connecting in ways that I don't necessarily expect. And even there was a long process for writing this book. And I'm actually glad there was a long process, because things happened, a couple of years after I stopped writing that kind of changed the course of the book as well. And I think, I don't know, that there's an authenticity there that I can't avoid, really, because I'm actually dealing with actual things.
Yeah,
instead of my imagination, which I thought, was worth not so much. But then in this book, my imagination got going too. So
sometimes it's just meant to be, and it all just fits together. So I have a big heart for dogs, so I'm really interested in Calvin. Tell us about Calvin and why you chose for him to be kind of the center of this series, the thing that he's named in both the titles, and I think he captures the heart of your readers. So tell us why you chose to center this series around Calvin.
Well, once again, art imitating life. I had a beautiful, gigantic white golden retriever named Calvin for about 14 years. And he got me through some very difficult times in Amsterdam, as well as having some fabulous times with him. He loved riding in the Jeep, Jacks. And I don't know, I just had, people kept saying to me, other dog owners would say to me, my God, he's not like other dogs. He's smarter than other dogs. And I really felt, I mean, I had like more like a human friendship with him than I did not own Calvin. Calvin and I were, well, I would like to think on equal footing, but sometimes he was the alpha for sure. And I don't know, he had such a great personality. So when I first started to think about this story, and because it was based on an event when I was with him, it was natural to put him into it. The very first chapter that I wrote was written in 3 different sections, and the first section was from Calvin's point of view. And I just never felt that he could not be involved in the story. I mean, if I was going to put his point of view in, he had to have action as well. And in the first book, he does. His main arc, or his main thing is save Decker. But that changes in the second book, because there's a little boy, and suddenly Calvin's attention shifts to protect Ethan. And it turns out Ethan does need some protecting, and Calvin is absolutely right there. So actually, I was thinking about this recently. I thought of this as sort of a series about Decker, but actually Calvin is the center of it. And in the first book, it's Calvin and Decker. In the second book, it's Calvin kind of between Decker and Ethan. And I think I just had an idea recently, which is brand new, about carrying it to the logical trilogy end with a book that really focuses on Calvin and Ethan, where Decker becomes the conflict.
Oh, wow. The things you learn on BSB Must Read. That's amazing.
You didn't get that proposal yet?
Oh, that sounds great. I do agree that I think Calvin is at the heart of this series, and I think at the heart of your readers. So it's so unique, I think, what you've done with him and in these books. So as you mentioned, the second book, Corpus Calvin, is a little bit different to the first one. There's some supernatural elements that aren't in book one. So for those of your readers who have read Calvin's Head, tell us a little bit about how Corpus Calvin is different. What kind of starts this mystery in terms of these supernatural occurrences?
Well, it starts with the incident that I did in the reading, with the noises in the inn that seem more than an old building creaking. I think what makes this different is that Decker does not really, he's not a believer. He's skeptical about all of this. He in his mind, there's a rational explanation for anything, and he doesn't believe in the supernatural or ghosts or any of that stuff. So I liked the idea that he is investigating something to disprove it, as it were.
Yeah.
And as the book goes along, there becomes more and more evidence, whether Decker sees it or not, to prove that something is going on. And there are also other characters involved, like a local North Country dowser who does cleansings at the inn, who has an experience. There's a psychic medium who shows up uninvited, who actually becomes integral to what happens in the second half of the book. So there was this kind of struggle with Decker to, even though he's presented with evidence, not believing it, which is not exactly how a sleuth works.
For sure, for sure. He's very particular kind of amateur sleuth, and I think sometimes his stubbornness and his not being, the best detective adds to the charm of the books. So
I hope so. I mean, I like Decker. I like his fumbling and his foibling and his wrong decisions and things like that. But I think, and that's what makes the books the same. I mean, in terms of voice, it's still Decker's voice propelling the story, and it's just a different kind of story he's moving to, the way that we all move into different stories in different chapters of our lives.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I cannot wait to read it. I hope you check it out too. Corpus Calvin is out November 1st on the Bold Strokes web store, and November 15 everywhere else books are sold. And if you haven't read Calvin's Head yet, start with that one and enjoy.